Now, first of all, this poem, uh, it is written by the Indian poet Kamla Das, South Indian poet born in Kerala. So, Kamla Das here pens a poem that is about human relationships. So, it's a very poignant or a heart-rending poem. It's a poem that speaks about human relationships. It talks about fragile and sensitive human relationships. And because the theme is between a daughter and a mother, therefore it is also a universal poem. The poem has a universal theme because it talks about uh, a daughter's fear of her mother's inevitable death. So look at the about the poet section. Kamala Das was born in Malabar, Kerala. She is recognized as one of India's foremost poets. Her works are known for their originality, versatility, and the indigenous flavor of the soil. So her works are original and they're versatile. Versatile means they cover a wide range of subjects, and her works have an indigenous flavor, which means that her works basically have an Indianness. They have a flavor of Indianness. Kamala Das has published many novels and short stories in English and Malayalam under the name Madhavi Kutti. Some of her works in English include the novel Alphabet of Lust, a collection of short stories, Padmavati the Harlot, and other stories. In addition to 5 books of poetry, she is a sensitive writer who captures the complex subtleties of human relationships in lyrical idiom. My Mother at 66 is an example. So we find that in this poem, she talks about the subtleties or the nuances of human relationships. That how human relationships are very complex. There are different layers to it. For example, when we talk of a child and a mother, then the relationship is not always of love. It can be a bittersweet relationship. It is not always full of love. It is also full of anger because the mother is almost half the time angry at her child. It is also of fear because the child always fears the eventual death of his or her mother. Therefore, human relationships are very complicated. They are not one sided, they have a layer of complexity. Before you read, aging is a natural process. Have you ever thought what our elderly parents expect from us? Now, here the poet says that aging is a process which is very natural. People age, which means they grow older, and as they grow older, they inch towards death. It is a natural process, yet it affects us, it affects everyone, the person who is aging and the person who is watching somebody age. Now, look at the poem. The poem is written in the first person narrative in autobiographical way. Driving from my parents' home to coaching last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me, doze, open mouthed. So you can see there is no full stop here, which means that there is a continuity. The poet starts the poem by saying that as she was driving. So this tells us that the poet is an adult poet, or the poet speaker, the narrator speaker is not a child but an adult. So Kamala Das says that as she was driving from her parents' home, so she had gone to her parents' house, which again tells us that she does not live with her parents anymore. Maybe she is married, or maybe she lives in some other city. But the point is that she lives in some other city. So she had gone on a visit to her parents' home, and now she's driving back. She's driving from her parents' house to the airport. So driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday. So she is driving from her parents' house to Cochin last Friday morning. I saw my mother beside me. So as she's driving, she can see her mother is sitting beside her. Her mother is sitting beside her in the car and she is dozing. Okay, dozing means she is sleeping. Like she is sitting and she has fallen asleep. So her mouth is slightly open, her face ashen, like that of a corpse. Underline corpse and write dead body. So her face is like that of a dead body. It is ashen, which means it is ash colored. It is uh, gray color. So gray is a color we associate with ash, and we also associate gray with a dead body because dead bodies basically lose their color very fast. They are no longer red. So her face is ashen like that of a corpse. And I realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. So all of a sudden, the poet was hit with this realization that her mother had indeed turned old, that her mother had really become what she was biologically supposed to become. I realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. So it suddenly hit her in a very painful way that her mother, who is even unable to stay awake, when she's in car, uh, she is simply falling asleep. She does not have that kind of control on her senses anymore. And when she looked at her mother looked uh, her mouth slightly open, her eyes closed, and she looked like she was a dead body. And that hit her very fast. It hit her very hard because the poet realized that uh, her mother does not have too many years to live because she had grown very old. And so far she had taken her mother's age to be granted. But now, for the first time, it hit her that her mother was really old. So she not only looked old, but she had really become old. So she was as old as she looked. But soon put that thought away. So the poet says that uh, the poet tried to dismiss that thought. The poet put that thought away. So she tried to dismiss that thought and she looked out in order to distract her. In order to distract herself, she looked out. So she looked outside. And when she looked outside and she saw there were trees and children, young trees and young children that were speeding past. So I put that thought away and I looked out at young trees sprinting. So the word sprinting means running. So write down running or speeding past. Underline the word sprinting and write running or speeding past. Running or speeding past. So the trees are quickly running away or speeding past because the car is moving away. The merry children, underline merry and write happy. So the merry, happy, joyful children spilling out of their homes. So there are many merry children or happy children who are spilling out of their homes. Spilling out of their homes basically is a way of saying that they are running out of their houses in joyful numbers to play outside. Now, here, even though the language is very easy to comprehend, that the poet is driving and she saw her mother is asleep, and on the other side, she saw that there are young trees and young children. But if you try to uh, read within the lines, you can see that the poet can see the two spectrums of life on the two ends or on her two sides. On one side, she can see her mother who is very old, who has turned very old and who is aging very fast. And on the other end or on the other side, the poet can see young people, young children, and young trees. So the poet is the mediator. The poet is sitting in the middle. On one side of the poet is the mother. The mother represents the old people or the aging or dying life. On the other side is the on the other side we have the young children or the young trees, the green trees, and they symbolize new life. They symbolize emergence of life. They symbolize newness or freshness. And the mother symbolizes oldness or decay. And in between, we have the poet. So it is a linear structure where in this line, in the middle is the poet who is neither old nor young. So because she is not very old and she is not very young, she is not as old as the mother, she is not as young as the children. Therefore, on one side, you have the young children, the young trees. Then you have the poet who is middle aged. And then you have the poet's mother who is 66. So she is pretty old. So, in terms of linear structure, the poet has arranged this in the order of life or age. And in a philosophical sense, also, the poet is brooding that life goes on. On one end, she has her mother who is very close to the end of her life. The mother represents old age. Her face is very pale, uh, ash like, dead like. And on the other end, she can see children who are running, who are full of life, lively. She can see young green trees sprinting very fast. So the message here is that that life is like a circle, or life goes on, life moves on. Things become old and they decay and they die, but they are replaced by new energy or new life. So new people come, new life bubbles. So we have new life bubbling and we have new people, new energy. Okay, so basically this is how life works. So the poet says that spilling out of their homes, but after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away. So this line tells us that the poet has gone to the airport. So after the airport security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her. Now the poet is going back to her house. She is about to catch a flight. So after the security check is done, she looks back and she can see her mother standing her and feebly waving her. So she looks at her mother again. I looked again at her, wan, pale. Underline the word wan and write dull, dull, dull and pallid, dull and pallid, 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 in bracket write pale. So the word wan means dull and pallid, and the word pallid means pale. So the poet throws a glance, and the poet says that I looked at my mother again. She looked worn, pale, as a late winter's moon. So there is simile here. So you write down simile as a late winter's moon. The poet's uh, the poet's mother's face has been compared to a moon that you can see in late winter. Now, because in late winter the sky is very foggy and misty, the air is very misty and foggy. You do not get a very bright picture of the moon. You get a very blurred picture of the moon. The moon looks very pale. It does not appear very shiny or bright. It appears very pale. And that paleness has been compared to the paleness in the mother's face. That the mother looks very pale, very wan. She, because when people are young, like in children, then the face is very red. The face is full of blood. Blood flows very fast and smooth. But in old people, blood slows down. The blood circulation slows down. Skin becomes loose, and therefore face appears pale. It does not appear red or full. It appears pale. Pale. It appears pale and it appears dull. So when the poet looks again, and she can see her mother's pale face, which has been compared to the moon, late winter's moon. And then the poet is suddenly hit with that old pain again. So the poet says, I looked again at her worn, pale as a late winter's moon and felt that old familiar ache. Underline ache and write pain or agony. Ache means Pain, pain or agony, Agony. My childhood's fear. So the poet says that suddenly the poet was hit with that fear again. This fear has been there in the poet's heart since her childhood. The fear of her mother's death. And now, now even though the poet is no longer a child, the poet is an adult, but that old fear comes back to haunt her again, and she suddenly feels that her mother may just be a few days or a few months away from her death. Maybe she will live for a few years, but the point is that she is suddenly hit. The poet is suddenly hit by the uh, inevitability of death. That death is inevitable, it is bound to come. We may delay it, but we cannot stop it from coming. And the poet finds that she is not mentally prepared to accept her mother's demise. She is not mentally prepared. Like one is never mentally prepared, but this is something. This fear suddenly, crops up very hard. This fear had been aching her since she was a child, but right now this fear suddenly turns raw again. This fear suddenly begins to hit her again. So maybe she wanted to say a lot of things, but all she could say was that I will see you soon. So I felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear, but all I said was, see you soon, Amma. All I did was smile and smile and smile. So the poet says that all she could say was see you soon, and all she could do was smile. So the poet smiled. The smile was supposed to convey her goodbye. So she smiled in order to say goodbye to her mother. She also said, "See you soon." But behind her smile, there is this lingering fear that uh, maybe her mother's days are numbered. Maybe, maybe she may never get to see her mother again. And every passing month, with every passing year, with every passing week, her mother will now grow older and older. She will not become any younger. Therefore, the poet catches her flight in a very disturbed state of mind, in a very thoughtful state of mind. She is fearful. She is uh, affected, mentally affected. And because this is something which every child goes through, or every person goes through at some stage of life, therefore, this poem has a very strong universal appeal. Regardless of your language, culture, country, you will be able to connect to this poem. Okay, and therefore the poem has been rightly titled "My Mother at 66." So the title tells us that the age of the mother is 66. Therefore, the poet must be maybe in her 30s or around. Now, take out your copy and write down. Quickly give the heading "My Mother at 66" and write down complete summary. My Mother at 66, complete summary. In bracket, write Kamala Das. Kamal, Kamala Das. Right. Answer. My Mother at 66. Write this title within single inverted comma. My Mother at 66, quote unquote, is a poignant and a touching poem. Is a poignant, Poignant. The word poignant means heart touching, like heart rending, painful. Is a poignant and a touching poem by Kamala Das, by Kamala, Kamala, by Kamala Das, 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 and it talks about, and it talks about the evanescence of youth and life. It talks about the evanescence, EVANAS, sorry, EVANESCENCE. I'm repeating the spelling: EVANESCENCE, evanescence of youth and life. Full stop. The meaning of evanescence you write down: shortness, shortness or temporariness. Something that is short or temporary. Like life or youth is not permanent, it is impermanent. The meaning is shortness and impermanence. The meaning write down: shortness and impermanence. Impermanence. Okay, evanescence of youth and life. Full stop. Then after full stop. It is autobiographical. It is autobiographical. Autobiographical. It is autobiographical, means this poem is autobiographical and exposes, exposes the poet's melancholic state of mind, the poet's, Poet apostrophe S, the poet's melancholic, 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 poet's melancholic, which means sad, poet's melancholic state of mind as she observes, as she observes the wan, WAN, wan face of her aging mother, as she observes the wan face, FACE, face of her aging mother, AGEING, aging mother, full stop. Change para. The poet is heading, the poet is heading, HEADING. The poet is heading to the airport. The poet is heading to the airport to return to her place, to return to her place after staying for some days, after staying, STAYING, after staying for some days at her parents' house, after staying for some days at her parents' house, PARENTS apostrophe, parents' house, full stop. Full stop. On the way to airport, on the way to airport, on the way to airport, comma, she happens to glance, she happens, HAPPENS, she happens to glance, GLANCE, she happens to glance at her dozing mother's visage. She happens to glance at her dozing, DOZING. She happens to glance at her dozing mother's, MOTHER apostrophe S, at her dozing mother's visage, VISAGE. In bracket, write face. Visage means FACE, face. That appears, that appears pallid, that appears pallid, PALLLID, PALLID, pallid, in bracket, write pale. The meaning of pallid is pale, PALE, that appears pallid or pale and sickly, and sickly, SICKLY, full stop. So that appears pallid and sickly. Or you may write, it appears pale and sickly, SICKLY, full stop. The sight, 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 the sight makes the poet upset and pensive. The sight makes the poet upset and pensive, 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 pensive. Full stop. The meaning of pensive, write down. Uh, Painfully thoughtful. Painfully thoughtful. Painfully thoughtful. Which means you are basically thinking, you are lost in your thought, but you are thinking about something sad. Like the thought is a sad thought. It is not a happy memory. You are thinking about a sad memory, or you are thinking, you are brooding in a sad way. So the sight of her mother makes the poet upset and pensive. pensive. Full stop. With a jolt of realization, with a jolt, jolt of realization, comma, the poet discovers that the poet discovers, discovers that her mother has indeed, her mother has indeed turned as old as she looks. Her mother has indeed turned as old as she looks. Full stop. Her withered, withered, her withered, and yeah, withered liver. Uh, Her withered face, face, face. Withered means like dry. Her withered face casts, casts a web of, a web, web, a web of gloom and sorrow, gloom, gloom, a web of gloom and sorrow over the poet. Casts a web of gloom and sorrow over the poet. Full stop. Change para. But, comma, in an attempt, but, comma, in an attempt, ATTEMPT, in an attempt to discard, DISCARD, in an attempt to discard such gloomy thoughts, such gloomy thoughts, 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 comma, she looks out of the window, she looks out of the window and witnesses, she looks out of the window and witnesses, 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 open double quotes, young trees, young trees. So young trees within quotes, quotes closed, and and merry children. Uh, Also put merry children within double quotes. So open double quotes, merry children, double quotes closed, sprinting by, sprinting by, SPRINTING, sprinting by, full stop. I'm repeating the line. But in an attempt to discard, which means to dismiss, such gloomy thoughts, gloomy means sad thoughts, she looks out of the window and she witnesses young trees and merry children sprinting by. So they're rushing by because the car is moving ahead. Full stop. Thus, comma, the scene outside, thus, comma, the scene, SCENE, the scene outside creates a complete contrast, creates a complete contrast to the scene inside the car. to the scene, SCENE, scene inside the car. Full stop. The young trees and the children. The young trees and the children symbolize SYMBOLIZE or ISE, symbolize the new generation, symbolize the new generation, while the poet's aged mother, while the poet, POET apostrophe S, while the poet's aged, AGED, aged mother epitomizes, EPITOMISES. The poet's aged mother epitomizes, EPITOMISES, epitomizes a tired and a dying generation. A tired, 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 and a dying, DYING, a dying, tired and a dying generation, comma, with the poet, with the poet mediating between the two, with the poet mediating, 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 the poet mediating between the two, TWO, between the two, full stop. So it means that on one hand you have the children and the trees, on the other hand you have the old mother that represents a dying generation, and the poet is in the middle, so she basically mediates between the two. Full stop. Change paragraph. Later in the airport, comma. Later in the airport, comma. After the security check, after the security check, security hyphen check, CHECK. Later in the airport, after the security check, when the poet is about to depart, when the poet is about to depart, when the poet is about to depart, 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 comma, she she spins around, she spins around, SPINS, which means she turns around. She spins around to take a last look at her mother, to take a last look at her mother. Full stop. Once again, ONCE, once again, comma, she is engulfed, ENGULFED, ENGULFED. Once again, comma, she is engulfed with sorrow. She is engulfed with sorrow as she notices, as she notices her old wilted mother, her old, old, comma, wilted, wilted, wilted mother. The meaning of wilted is you can write down withered, which means her mother has become uh, withered, like wrinkled. So she is old and wrinkled. Murjha jana, that is to become withered or wilted. wilted. So you have different words. You can use withered, you can use wrinkled, and you can use wilted. They all mean the same. So use different words in different sentences. So she notices her old wilted mother, because in the previous sentence we had used the word withered. So now we are using the word wilted. wilted. Her old wilted mother, who appears as pale as, who appears APPEARS, who appears as pale, PALE, as pale as the late winter's moon. Late winter, WINTER apostrophe S, late winter's moon, 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 full stop. Even though she feels, even though she feels unsettled from within, even though she feels, FWLS, she feels unsettled, UNSETTLED, even though she feels unsettled from within, from within, comma, she is unable to, she is unable to express her emotions, she is unable to express her emotions explicitly. She is unable to express her emotions explicitly. 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 Explicitly means like openly. So she is unable to express herself openly. She is unable to say anything to her mother except for see you soon. Full stop. Instead, INSTEAD. Instead, comma, she smiles and says, instead, comma, she smiles and says, 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 again, comma, open double quotes, see you soon, Amma. See you soon, comma, AMMA, Amma. Full stop, unquote. See you soon, Amma. Full stop, unquote. The poet is heartbroken. The poet is heartbroken. HEART, heart hyphen broken, and describes this agony, and describes this agony, AGONY. Agony means pain or suffering. AGONY describes this agony as a open double quotes, familiar ache, Familiar, ache, ACHE, quotation closed. And again, open double quotes. Childhood's fear, childhood's fear, CHILD, apostrophe S, fear, FEAR, full stop, unquote, full stop, quotation closed. I'm repeating this, the last two lines. Instead, she smiles and says, within quotes, see you soon, Amma. The poet is heartbroken and describes this agony as a familiar ache and childhood's fear. Familiar ache within double quotes, childhood's fear within double quotes. Change paragraph, one conclusion, concluding line, change para. So we see that, so we see that Kamala Das, Kamala Das has given a very realistic, so we see that Kamala Das has given a very realistic, REALISTIC, a very realistic, comma, poignant, POIGNANT, a very realistic, comma, poignant, 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 and a brutally painful portrayal, and a brutally, BRUTALLY, and a brutally painful, PAINFUL, painful portrayal, PORTRAYAL, brutally painful portrayal of her 66-year-old mother. Write 66 in words, of her 66-year-old mother, full stop. So we see that Kamala Das has given a very realistic, poignant, and a brutally painful portrayal of her 66-year-old mother, full stop. It means that she has given a very realistic, which means what she has given is a very real. It is not something which is fictional. Uh, it is something that happens in reality, how our parents grow old. She has given a very poignant portrayal, which means it makes you feel sad. And the rendition is a painful rendition. It touches your heart in a very painful way. And it is brutally painful. It is a harsh reality of life. The way she has portrayed her mother, who is 66. So it is not that her mother is 99. It is she is 66. She may she may go on to live for another quite a few years. But the point is that here the poet suddenly realizes that there is a time lag that separates her, the poet herself, and her mother. They cannot die at the same time. In all probability, her mother will die much earlier than the poet herself. And this realization that one day her mother will die, and maybe that day is not so far away. This realization, uh, which is again based on a long drawn childhood fear. It's a fear that she has been carrying in her heart since she was a child. But now suddenly this fear has turned very real. This fear has come alive again when she sees her mother's face, which looks like a dead body as she sleeps. and suddenly she feels that this fear that had been gnawing inside her for years, this fear now suddenly has erupted like a python. It has erupted like a snake and is going to swallow her. She suddenly feels that the fear is going to manifest itself. Now it is not very long because her mother is looking very old. She is not looking young anymore. Okay, so this is the end of the poem. So overall, we find that in this poem, uh, the poet, first of all, she is an Indian poet, so her name is Kamala Das. She is a South Indian poet. Uh, it is autobiographical, which means that what she has written must have happened. So it is based on a simple anecdote. It is a simple uh, journal, you can say, when she was going back to her home in Cochin from her parents' native place. The place is not mentioned. She is about to catch a flight. So there is no major story here. It is not a plot-oriented poem. It is not a poem that tells a story. It is not a poem that is full of characters or there is some kind of a story going on. Or like something is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen here. It is not a poem that is based on a chain of narratives, a chain of events. There is no chain here. It is some simply, the poem is very short and the poem has nothing to tell because if you look at the story or at the plot part of the poem, it is just that the poet is returning home. She drives, she reaches the airport, she tells her mother, "See you soon, Amma," and she goes out. So basically, from the story point of view or from narrative point of view, there is nothing much here. But what the poem is conveying in a very heavy way is you know emotion. So the poet is shifting that painful emotion from her own heart to the reader's heart. Because even though this poem is autobiographical, even though this poem talks about the poet's mother, but when you read the poem, you will be able to connect and relate to this poem because the poem has this universal theme, this fear of losing our loved ones, not just mother or father, but any loved one. This fear is a very real fear. It is a fear that usually disturbs a child uh, right from the day he or she begins to understand the meaning of death. This fear separates people across generations. At the same time, the poet also offers an insight into young life, the young trees and the young children, trying to argue the case that it is a it is a harsh philosophy of life. It is an ugly truth of life that people turn old and they go to the other side of life, but new life keeps springing up. New children, new trees, they keep springing up. And the one who are in the middle, like the poet herself, the one who are in the middle, they are left brooding, they are left thinking, they are upset, they are left in that sad state. They do not know what to do because they are trying to hold on to both the sides of life. They are trying to hold on to the people who have gone old, and they're also trying to hold on to people who are young. They are in the middle. They find that they are certainly in a position they don't want to be. Anyway, so this is the poem. Okay, we'll stop here then. Bye. Good night. If you have anybody who asks.